friends, Eric Andreas, your guitar sage here. I am Newland and I am scratchy today. That's okay. I've had several really fun days here with my buddy in town, and we're just having a blast. And yeah, that's literally where I'm at today. Today I'm going to be teaching you, friends, the 5 things that I'm always aware of, but really that pro guitar players are aware of, or I should say the things that if you're aware of these things, they will make you sound more pro. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break those things down for you today and then tell you why it is that they're important. Real simple stuff that anybody can get. And obviously, just knowing them is not going to make you a great player, but getting good at them will make you a great player, and I'll show you why. Before we begin, a few things going on right now. Link in the description of this video. We have several discounts going on right now. 3 courses. We have the jazz course that we just did with Chip Henderson. We've got the rock rhythm course that we did with Jeff Duke, and we also have a speed picking course that we did with Jeff Duke. All 3 of those are somewhere 82% off and more. I think up to 90% off. So the link for that's below. Are the individual links in there, Mike, or just the one?
For now, just have them go to YourGuitarSage.com/Udemy.
Okay, sweet. So, okay, awesome. Thank you, buddy. Go to YourGuitarSage.com/Udemy. You're going to find those links, and those 3 will be at the top. Also, all the other courses that we do with all of our artists, and we put those courses on Udemy. All those other courses are also discounted, not at the discount that those 3 are right now. We're featuring those right now, but if you want to have access to all of them, Mike just posted that link there, okay? Also, you'll see the tip jar at the top there. If you want to buy us a coffee, that would be great. It's called buymeacoffee.com, so otherwise it would be buy a burrito, because that's what we do here is burritos. So, that being said, let's dig into it. Here are the 5 things that you need to know and that people are, pro guitar players are thinking about all the time, studio players, and if you find yourself getting lost on the neck and what have you, chances are it has something to do with one of these basic foundational bits here. For some of you, you might go, gosh, that's foundational. I promise you it is, and I'm going to walk you through it. So don't freak out. I got you, okay? Here are the 5 things. Knowing what the tonal center is, and I'll explain why it is that these things are important in just a minute. Knowing what the tonal center is, knowing what your octaves and springboards are. You don't have to know what that is right now. Knowing what the caged system is, how that relates. Knowing at least the pentatonic scale as a fallback. And then lastly, tone. Okay, and probably the lesser important, I don't even want to say that, but it's important. But I'd rather someone play the right notes with bad tone than someone play with great tone and play the wrong notes. I'm using my Blues Junior today, so I'm like a fish out of water because I don't have I don't have my other guitars here today because our singer for the band got him in his truck, and he's going out west right now, and where I'm going to be going in a few days as well. So I'll update you guys about all that. We're doing some videos out there and some shows, so be on the lookout on my Instagram and what have you to announce the dates. If you're interested, if you're in the Rapid City, Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming area, that little area there, we'll be playing. Well, I'll actually give you some cities and what have you, okay? All right, now, let's go from the top down, because I kind of have these in somewhat of an order, okay? The tonal center. So knowing the tonal center or the key of a song is absolutely the most important thing. If you were going to do a TED Talk and someone said, hey man, you get to do a TED Talk, and you're like so excited that you get to do a TED Talk because everybody wants to do a TED Talk, right? So you get your opportunity to do a TED Talk, and right as you hang up and you don't have the guy's phone number, you forgot to ask him what he wanted you to talk about. You just had the dates and when you're going to show up and everything else. No way to get in touch. Now you get to do a TED Talk on you don't know what, right? Would be really hard to speak to the audience if they were expecting a certain something, right? So you could think about the tonal center as that. It's also, another way to think about it is the central theme of a movie or the central theme of a song or something like this, right? And what that tonal center does, what it tells us is, it tells us all the other notes and all the other chords that most likely are going to be present. The ones that are diatonically going to appear naturally. And so what we mean by diatonic is the major scale, right? So knowing that scale and knowing what that scale means are two different things. So if you know what the scale is, great, but knowing what that means to the construct of 99.999% of all the music that you've ever heard, those are two different things, okay? So know the major scale and then understand how it applies as I'm showing you here, as I show you in my courses and what have you. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But essentially, the construction of that scale, if played with harmonies, right? When we play something with harmonies, that sort of thing. Once we start adding harmonies to it, now we can get the flavors of our chords, major, minor, and diminished, in a specific order that the ear is expecting. You may not know this, but there is a construct to music, and the reason that your one song resonates with you more than another has to do with, typically, with how it plays with those variables, okay? You can almost think about them like physics laws, but for music. And to understand some of those concepts, that's called music theory. But the tonal center is so important because it lets us know what notes and what chords are probably going to appear. High probability. For instance, if we're playing piano and we go to the piano with all the white and black keys, lots of them on there, right? If we hit that C note and we make that C note our tonal center or our key, then what that means, C major, then we would play only the white keys, okay? If we were playing in the key of G major, G and C are very similar. G, the key of G, is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. So a little bit unlike the C that has the F natural, the white key, the key of G has a sharpened or sharped F. So it's F sharp, that's the one key that's black. And that's how it works. So now you would know that that's the key you're in. And so all your chords, when you go to play an F, you throw that F sharp in there as well. Okay, I'm trying to oversimplify this for you, but essentially, again, let's go back to the tonal center is going to be the one note that all the other notes and all the other chords want to resolve back to. It's usually the first chord of a song, usually the last chord of a song, not always, but most of the time. It's usually the very last note of a chorus. It's what they end on. If I show this to you, and I have videos for you out there that show this to you, it'll start making sense. But you have to kind of be shown it or find it on your own, and then it starts becoming very clear. Okay, so that's what we mean by tonal center. If you don't know the tonal center, well, I got more to share with you on this. Folks that say that they play by ear, man, I don't know any music theory, man. I just play by ear. I'm an ear player, man. That's all I do, just play by ear. Really? Do you? Then hand me your guitar, and what I'll do is I'll tune it to standard tuning, the way you expect it to be, but I won't tune the strings to E, A, D, G, B, E, okay? They'll be in tune, and then let's see how much of an ear player you are. Because, in fact, yes, of course we use our ears, but we're using other things as well. So there's this myth that people are just playing by ear and they don't know any forms and they don't know any scales and they don't know anything. I don't care what they say. If they're playing by ear, they're assuming that the guitar is set up a certain way, whatever tuning it is that they're used to, typically standard, okay? So with that being said, we have to understand that, that number one, that tonal center is so important, but there are certain things that music implies, and once we learn those things, then we can work with the parameters, but if we don't, we can't, okay? So, tonal center, we got that. There was something else I felt like I wanted to say on that. It'll probably come back to me. Forget. Okay, so next one would be octaves or springboard. So octaves are springboards. So it's good to know that if we're playing in the key of A minor, which is what that was just now, here's an A, here's an A, here's an A, A, A. Okay, so I just played a bunch of A's. Okay, why is that important? Well, it's important because if we're playing a solo, in this case here, we just start off on this F, and then we've got the A minor, but it's nice to know that there's an A. Okay, so if I don't know, if I only know that there's one A right here, well then I'm always going to have to come back to that note. But if I know there's one here and here and here and what have you, that helps me to understand the neck better, and then I can navigate. It's also my benchmark, right? A benchmark note where if I know this is an A, then I know this is a G. I'm sorry. If I know this is an A, I know this is a B. If I know this is an A, this is a G. It's a reference point, right? Got that line in the middle of the road. You know that if you're in the US, you should be on the right of it, and in the UK, you should be on the left of it, right? It's a reference. And everybody just does it. They just stay in their lane, hopefully. That's what we're doing here, okay? It's just a reference point, but that reference point means everything. And so how might we know these? How might we learn them? I'm going to show you super easy. For those of you who haven't seen this before, this will be mind-blowing for you. And for those where you know this, good, we'll do a refresher. So here's how it works. Super easy way to do this is any note that you want to find its octave of. From the 6th or 5th string, right, if we're counting from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this is the 6th string. So from the 6th or 5th string, doesn't matter, what we can do is if whatever this note is, if we want to find the note an octave up, I'm going to go down 2 strings, so 1, 2, and up 2 frets, 1, 2. So that there is also the same note. Okay, in this case it's a G, but it kind of doesn't matter what the note is. It's just know the patterns there, okay? And then from the 4th or 3rd string, if we go down, so here's our 4th string, we're on a G again still. If I go down 2 strings, 1, 2, and up 3 frets, 1, 2, 3, we also have a G. Okay? Works the same from the 3rd string. Let's try this as if we're on the 5th string. So here is a G. Here also happens to be a G. Okay? And if I go down 2 strings, 1, 2, up 2 frets, 1, 2, there is another G. And then remember, if we're on strings 4 and 3, then we're going to go up 2, up, or down 2, up 3. So here's a G. I'm going to go down 2 strings, 1, 2, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Because that's what the rule is. If we're on strings 6 and 5, it's down 2, up 2. Down 2, up 2. On strings 6 and 5. If it's on strings 4 and 3, it's down 2, up 3. Down 2, up 3. Just remember that. That's all you have to remember, and you'll be able to know at all times where those notes are. Now again, the concept is one thing, and you will want to write that down if that's new to you, okay? Write that down, work with it. If you forget, you can always search YourGuitarSage springboards, but it's not going to do you any good unless you have integrated it, right? It's just a concept. So you have to integrate it. So it'll work for you, right? But at the end of the day, unless it's just part of you, what use is it? You just wasted time learning something you're not using, okay? Okay, so that's what I mean by springboards. Also, another place you can find some springboards are at the octave points, right? So anything that's 12 frets above whatever it is that you're playing. If I'm playing this G here at the 3rd fret, I just add 12 to it and go to the 15th fret, and there's a G as well, okay? If I'm on the 2nd fret and this is a B, if I add 12 to 2, then I got the 14th fret, and there's an octave again. So I can grab it here, going down 2, up 2, where I can go easy enough, and then continue along with the other springboards that I've given you. Okay, so if that concept is new to you, you need to dig into it a little bit more. Search YourGuitarSage springboards. Okay. I also have a video on the tonal center or key. I know you guys are going to have some questions about that, so get those ready. As I'm talking about these things, write them down, get ready, because we're going to come back to the questions here in just a minute. Okay. The cage system. Now, I'm going over these really lightly with you because I have more detailed videos for you for free on YouTube, okay? All right, so the caged system. It's named after the 5, and there's only 5, open major chords on the guitar. It's C, A, G, E, and D. Caged, okay? F is not an open chord, okay? What we mean by open is we have open notes that are played at the nut. There's nothing in F that's played at the nut. Okay? So, those are the only 5 major chords, major open chords. Okay? Because of that, we know, I think you know this, if not, here you go. Anything that we do in the lower section of the guitar here, we can do further up the neck. Conversely, anything that we do up here, we can do further down. What do I mean by that? Well, if I play this scale, I can play that going up the neck. And I can just keep changing the key, right? By just moving it. Not really changing my, not at all changing my fingering here. Same fingering every time. We can do the same thing with chords, right? This is how a capo works. So if I have a C chord here, and then I move it up a half step, as long as I have a capo here, or in this case, I'll have to use my finger, but technically I could do that and play the chord, and it's just gonna go up a half step. Now, because I don't have a capo on me right now, then what I'm gonna do is bar that, and now that chord just moves up the fretboard in classic bar chord fashion. There's the octave. Okay? So, now because of that, you know, in this concept of bar chords, is that what the cage system says is that we can take those 5 shapes and we can play 5 versions of the same chord. Why would we want to do that? Well, it's kind of like this. It's the same chord, but it's a little different in that it's the same chord by name, but not by sound, okay? Okay, and here's how it works. Think about this. If you've ever had chili, is all chili the same? Well, yeah, it is, right? Beans and tomatoes, right? That sort of thing, spices. So it's all the same, but it's not all the same. We know it's not, right? The fireman's chili is different than your grandma's chili, is different than your mom's chili, different than your chili. So because of the ingredients and when they were added and how long they cooked and everything else. So we could say the same for these chords in that they contain the same ingredients. So a C chord has a C, E, G in it, right? But how those are stacked up, maybe in this case here it's a C, E, G, and maybe in this one it's a C, G, C, E. Okay? And when I say maybe, I mean it definitely is. All right? Same chord, but they sound slightly different. They share the same ingredients, but they're played in different orders and what have you, okay? That being said, what the cage system says is that we can, if we know what that tonal center is, and we just learned it, that could be a tonal center or root, if you will, of a chord. It can also, well, that's what we're going to be talking about now. It's the root of the chord. So if I take a G, well, let's take it with the key of C, since it's the cage system, and we're going to start with the C here. So here's a C. And I can play the C formation of the C chord. Remember, a C chord is a C, E, G. So this is a C chord, this is a C chord, C chord, C chord, C chord, C chord, C. Those are all C chords. And you're like, no, Eric, you're wrong. My guitar teacher taught me this is a C chord. Your guitar player is completely correct. This is a C chord. But what he didn't tell you, what she didn't tell you, is that this is also a C chord, and so is this, and so is this. And there's many different ways to play a C chord, just like there's many different ways to make a chili. So this concept says if we understand where these tonal centers or where these roots are, then we can build chords off of it in the classic C, A, G, E, D formations. Here's a C formation. So C chord, C formation, because that's the way my fingers are. Let's just call it that, okay? Everybody can agree with that. Now, if I wanted to play the A formation, I'm not going to play an A chord because that would be an A chord. I'm looking for a C chord. So what I'd have to do is I'd have to transpose that chord up. So there's my C chord. C chord, C chord. Right? Basing it all off this C bass note. C chord, C chord. You guys have played that bar chord, right? Okay, for some of you, the light's going on. For some of you, you need more convincing. So here we go. So the way the cage system works is these formations work according to the letter name of the chord. So C formation, A formation. We call it the A formation because it comes from this little guy, which is the A chord, right? Except we move it up, it becomes a G. C, A, G. So this right here. Now, whether you can finger this or not is a whole nother story. I just need you to understand the concept here. So here is the G formation, right? Looks a lot like the G chord. But with a C in the bass note, now it's a C chord. G formation, because it looks like a G chord, but we're not fooled. It's not a G chord, that's a G chord. This is not a G chord. It looks like a G chord, but it's in disguise, it's a C chord. So we have a C form, we have an A form, we got a G form. And now we go through the word cage, C-A-G-E, now we need an E form. So here it is, toggled off of this 6th bass note. Looks like an E major chord, but we know it's not, because this is an E major chord, right? But if I move it up the fretboard, there's a C. Now we have a C form, A form, G form, E form. And if we want the D form, then we use our little springboard trick. We go down 2 strings, 1, 2, go up 2 frets, 1, 2. There's our bass note of the D form. That looks like a D chord, Eric. You are correct. Because that's the formation, right? And here it is. How do we know to put our fingers there? Well, because we're just taking that classic form of the chord and we're just moving it up the fretboard. That's all we're doing. Is it a little bit difficult to play? It might be for you. That's okay. Right now, we just want to get the concept. Playing the chords is a whole nother thing. Actually being able to physically do it. And in fact, why is this important? Let's go into it. So the cage system is important, not even so much in this case here where we're playing different chords, although that is important. That is important. But it's also helpful in lead work, okay? So just now, when I played that lead, right, we got this F chord and then an A minor, okay? And I start this lead off by going, okay, which is a nice, over this F chord, sounds nice, you know? And I resolve it on that A, which is the chord I'm on here, right? Again, I'm cognizant of what chords are happening. And so, and then I have this other little lick, right here. Okay, so there's just a little bluesy run. And then I got that E major chord. And and I play. So it's just some notes out of the major chord. That's all. We won't get into the minutia of that. The next section here, though, is I do this. Kind of a fun little bit here, kind of, I don't know, punky rock and roll. And so what I'm doing is I'm really just following the chords. I'm not doing anything, one who doesn't know how the concept came from my head onto the fretboard would go, whoa, that's amazing. How do you know to do that? And so all guitar players, or not all guitar players, but as we get better, we start putting all these pieces together. And then you go, well, if there's an F chord playing there, well, I could use the cage system here and play this D formation of that chord. And that's all I did. When that chord plays right there, right? So that's I'm playing that F chord. And then I'm adding these little noodle notes because it would sound better than just hanging on that chord. So I'm going notes out of the scale. And then I lose this finger and I play just the 3 5s here. 5 5 5. Right? That's because I'm representing an A minor chord there. So it's like. So I change with the chord. In classic conversation, if the conversation changes and you're listening to that other person, you will go with them, right? And then lastly, I kind of scooch up. Well, if this is an F, then this chord would be a G, right? And that's exactly what happens is the band goes to a G there and I kind of resolve it. Okay, so there is the cage system in action right there on the fretboard. Okay, so that's one reason why we would need that. All right, so we did C, we did A, we did G, we did E, and we did D. Okay, those are all 3 of those. So that's the formation that I used right down here. Okay, now for some of you, the lights should be going on, and you should be going, okay, oh man, I get it, right? But the amount that you can get this is infinite. So you can get the concept, but you can only get better and better and better and better and better and better at this, right? Some of the cats that I have on the show here are really, really, really good at this. And the only way they got good at that is by just repetition and sitting there with the guitar and focusing and going, okay, I could do this and do that. But at the end of the day, it's repetition, okay? You can't get good without repetition. End of the day, that's all. Okay, so just do that. So these concepts, once you get it, it's stuff that you're going to have to apply and practice and purposely use. Okay, there's this permeating thought with art that you shouldn't have to study, that you shouldn't have to dig in and do all this, that's cheating. You know, that's getting your skills from some other area. Well, I don't know about you, but I've never met a baby who could play a concerto or create a classic painting, or do anything other than poo themselves and pee themselves, right? So they learned, just like you did, and just like we all did, just like Hendrix did, just like Mozart did. It's just all it's learned, okay? The only people that I find have a real problem with that is either people who they don't believe it and they just need a little convincing yet, and then when they do, then the world's their oyster because they can do everything that they want. And the other people are lazy ass people who don't want to put in the time, and it's easier to believe a myth. There's a lot of that going on in the world right now. So don't be that person. Just understand that all the greats tell you it's really a matter of application. It's practice. That's what it is. And I mean greats of everything, not just guitar, okay? Okay, so the cage system, it's important because it now takes all those little dots that we learned, the springboards based off of the Tonal Center, and now it kind of puts some other bits and pieces there for you, right? Fills out the scales and where you can play many of your chords, many of your your what we call color tones, okay? Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, so cage system, we got that, right? Now, pentatonic. Let's talk about that. Pentatonic scale. Pentatonic scale, known as the 5-note penta note, pentatonic. Penta is 5, tonic is note. So the pentatonic scale is just the go-to because all the notes in it are very stable, and you got 2 less notes than the diatonic scale, the modes and that sort of thing. It's very simple. For some reason, what seems to permeate a lot of beginners as well, this thought is that, no, I need something else. I need this like magic scale, this magic chord, or yada, yada, yada. When in fact, no, it's not. You don't need something magic. What you just need to do is learn the basics and get really good at the basics, right? Carpenters who are driving nails with a basic hammer are not looking for some giant new invention that drives nails. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe you have a nail gun or something like that, but you just get good at the basics and you can do lots of things. The pentatonic scale looks like this. We're not going to go into a lot of detail because I have a video for you on this. Lots of videos for you on this. Pentatonic scale goes like this. In this case, I'm playing the minor pentatonic, okay? A minor pentatonic, to be precise, because it works really well over this. So it's starting on the 6th string. We got fingers 1 and 4, 1 and 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, and back. And so listen to that over this, right? That was all pentatonic scale, except when I went to that A major chord, I did a little note that was outside the scale. But you get the idea, okay? So, pentatonic scale, you got to know the pentatonic scale and know how to use it. That's all we're going to say about that because I want to make sure that I get to your questions. But the pentatonic scale is super valuable, super helpful. Man, if you took all the great solos of our times, I guarantee you 90% of the notes would be in the pentatonic scale. Those are the ones that are good, okay? All right, and then tone. This one is not even so much something that I'm thinking about all the time, but it's something I have to be cognizant about once I create my tone for a song and what have you, then it's usually set it and forget it. That being said, sometimes I have to change my tone in the middle of a song because the song calls for it. So, unfortunately, I don't have my Kemper here today. That's on its way out west. Who knows where it's at right now. But let's talk about tone for just a minute. So tone can be anything from the reverb that you're using. You can hear that little decay happening there. It sounds like it's in a hallway, right? And then it can also be the brightness and the darkness of what you're playing. You know? So all that is your tone, your delays, wah-wah, all the effects. And so it's important to be aware of that, what kind of guitar you're using. You know, with the band, with Gabriel the Bull, I don't use this. And I'm a Strat guy. I love Strats, but I'm an all sorts of guitars guy. I love different types of guitars for different scenarios. It's like different paintbrushes, right? And so, but for that band, I don't use this guitar. I use a Gretsch, and then every now and then I'll use a Telecaster. But for the most part, I use the Gretsch because it has this certain sound that's older in my ears, probably older to you too, because that was an older guitar that was used a lot back in the day with surf rock and rockabilly and that sort of thing. And so I'm borrowing from that and I'm exploiting that idea and those tones from that. If I wanted to sound more like Stevie Ray Vaughan, then I would use a Strat and not a Gibson. So there's certain things that we want to do as far as tone to match what it is that we're doing. And that has everything to do with the guitar. It has to do with your amp and your amp settings. It has to do with effects and those effects settings. And so someone might say, well, how do I know what's right? It's subjective, and I saw that in the chat earlier. Somebody said it. Very wise, yes. It's subjective because, well, and it's all subjective because it's art. Music is art. Art is subjective. And so what sounds good to one person may be busy to somebody else, like as far as they're playing. There's that, okay? So as far as tone, it's also subjective because one person may not have a lot of brights in their ears. They may not have a lot of the highs, I should say. If they've listened to loud music for a long time, the highs are the first thing that goes. So they may go to their amp and crank those highs because that sounds good to them. And then to you, you're like, God, their guitar sounds so tinny, right? So there's that. So last thing I'll say here, we'll get to some questions. In regards to tone, do what sounds good and don't overanalyze it. What I mean by that is if it sounds good to you, don't look to somebody else to say it doesn't sound good. There's nothing wrong with taking in some different information, especially at first. But eventually, you're going to start knowing what you like, and would it matter what somebody else said, right? You obviously tuned your guitar and your amp. You've set all the settings to where it sounds good to you. So why are you asking somebody else? So what I'm saying is, don't overthink that process. If it sounds good, then awesome. That's what you want to do. And same thing with all the other bits here. If it sounds good, it's right. Okay, don't need to overanalyze it. It's not like, and I will do this myself sometimes if I'm writing a solo or something, and I'll say, well, that note doesn't exactly go into that chord, so should I play that? And I have found myself doing that as well sometimes. And I don't do it anymore. There's that little person in there asking, like for instance, that one lick that I did over that E major chord. That whole bit there, I liked the sound of that better than playing every single note as an arpeggio. Right? That's all E major. That's an E major arpeggio. Right? All notes out of the, but I didn't like the way it sounded, so I was like, at the end of the day, I want it to sound good. I don't care if it matches theory-wise. Like, who cares? Just play what sounds good. So I implore you to adopt that same thought. That's why we have great bands that are off color, that are probably using that word wrong, that are whatever, the Clash or the Sex Pistols or just wacky bands that are breaking rules all the time. They're just going on what sounds good to them, and so at the end of the day, that's art. Okay, let's get to answering some questions. We got Corey Congelio in the house. What's up, Corey? All right. Okay, beautiful. Lots of folks here today. Wow. Okay, I'm going all the way back to the top of the chat here, and I'm going to get to any questions that you guys might have. If you would, all caps and a question mark will help me see things clearer, but I'm still going to scour here, okay? If you didn't hear me say it earlier, there's a link in there below, YourGuitarSage.com/Udemy, that has 3 courses right now that are somewhere between 82 and 90% off. There's the rock rhythm course, the rock speed picking course, and the jazz essentials course by Chip Henderson. They're all stellar courses for all what they do. Check those out. You get them steal them today, basically. Okay. Wow. A guitar broke his back. That's not good. Can sit to play, but can still learn theory. Yes, indeed. Wow. Bless you, man. How do you practice 8-finger tapping? You practice with 8 fingers instead of 5, okay? No, seriously, that's the answer. There's really nothing more to it than that. Then it's just practice, right? So some people will use, what he's talking about is tapping, right? So like this, like Eddie would do, right? So you're muting some strings, and then you're taking this finger and you're tapping, hammer-ons, pull-offs, right? So, but some folks are getting real clever and they're using multiple fingers, right? I don't do that. And so I suck at it. Whatever you don't do, you will suck at. Whatever you do, you'll get good at. So how do you practice? 8 fingers? You use all 8 fingers. But I wouldn't use them all at once. Probably pretty overwhelming. I'd start with the first finger, get good at that, start using the second finger, and so on and so forth, just like you would playing guitar, And it will be frustrating, but that's because whenever you feel yourself getting frustrated, there's one of two things happening. Either you're not practicing enough, or you're thinking that you're going to be better at something than the amount of time that you put into it. And both can be true, right? Okay. Is the cage better to know neck or arpeggios, or rather how important are arpeggio shapes? Matt, they're very important. They're very important in a later level, I should say. Maybe right at first, not as important, or I should say they are equally as important, but maybe it's not time to delve into your arpeggios right off the bat. That being said, why not jump in right off the bat? If your brain can handle it and you're a go-getter and you're like, I'm not gonna let this guitar beat me, like I'm gonna learn it, then you're good. Most folks they don't have that stamina. I've found after teaching thousands of lessons that most folks aren't like that. There's folks every now and then there are. The guys that I have on my show, those guys, they're not gonna let the guitar defeat them. They're gonna continue to conquer, right? So, but arpeggios are everything, and that jazz course that we're offering right now, that one talks all about arpeggios, because at the end of the day, if we're having a conversation, okay, we're talking about guitars right now, but if we start talking about something spiritual here, and it was a one-on-one or we're having a little party or something, and we're talking, and the conversation changes to spiritual, well, if you keep talking about what we were talking about 5 minutes ago, people are going to be like, what's with this guy? Like, the conversation moves to a different place. When a chord progression's happening, the chords are changing constantly. So if you're not tipping your hat to those chords, if you're not saying, okay, well, I know what that chord is with your playing, it's going to sound like it. And if you've ever heard two really smart people riffing, talking to each other, it's beautiful. It's like a symphony, because there's this ebb and flow. They're listening, they're sharing, they're building on ideas. But when you have two people talking about two different things, it's cacophony of craziness, right? It's bonkers. So the arpeggios are basically going to let you know where those notes are at. What most beginners do is they end up just playing the arpeggio over the chord, and that sounds a little bit just like playing an arpeggio over a chord. But knowing where the notes are at and then creating some sort of lick around it. So let me tell you my mentality for this, okay? It's like, if I have this chord shape right here, which is based off of the cage system, right? We have our E major, or A major, and if I go down 2 strings and up 2 frets, then I have that other tonic, we learned about this, and then we have the D major form. It's A major, but it's a D major form because it looks like a D. Okay? If it's minor, then it's going to look like a D minor. So this form right here, that's my arpeggio. So if I play that, let's do this. Let's do this. If I just take an A minor, okay, and I go, So if I have this A minor happening, right? I can play. Now if I play just the arpeggio, it's going to sound just like I'm playing an arpeggio. It's not going to sound very good. Kind of boring, right? But what I found is you could play a lick with those same 3 notes and throw in one other note out of the scale and it'll sound great, like, which is just a classic blues, right? You've heard that a million times. But I have those notes right under my fingers. So I'm throwing other things in there. It's like I've got the arpeggio. That's an arpeggio. But I'm throwing in. So it's not just arpeggios. If you're just playing the arpeggio alone, then yes, it's going to sound like poo. But if you say, well, I'm aware of what that arpeggio is, now let me create some licks around that with some notes that are outside the arpeggio but within the scale. Now you're cooking with gas and it's going to sound really cool. You literally can't mess up if you're resolving to those notes, okay? Okay, do you drone a open string when practicing solos? Well, it depends on the solo. I've done it before, right? Sorry, I don't have my whole setup here, so if I drop a pick, I'm picking it up. So, right? Ain't Talking About Love. He drones that high E string. Right? So yeah, it depends on the song. Do I do that all the time? No. Can you sequence arpeggios? Beer hounds, you'll have to explain what you mean by that. Sequence them. Here's my question. I used to be able to move my fretting hand well. I've been a contractor or a framer for 6 years. Now when I play, my hand just cramps up, so I stop. How can I get rid of these cramps? Well, that could be a medical issue, and it sounds like it probably is. What you eat has a lot to do with that sort of thing. You can get trigger finger and other things like that, right, from doing repetitive bits. Yoga is a great thing. I guess my 2 things that I could tell you what helped with me was yoga and eating right. Drinking lots of water. All that stuff has to do with it because it has to do with hydrating your cells, which has to do with lots of bits why people get cramps. Potassium, that's why people eat bananas so they don't get cramps. And because they just taste good, but potassium for cramps. Can you play a scale that covers the entire neck of the guitar? Yes. Is your hand cramped for a long time or just recently? Okay, yeah. Play some Yngwie Malmsteen solos. I would if I could. Could play them real slow. I'll leave that for Yngwie. The D form of the C chord is quite tasking. Need help. Okay, so here's the other thing to think about. Thank you so much for bringing that up. You don't have to play the chord. Well, then why know the shape, Eric? Because again, it's a roadmap. If I'm playing this form like I was doing just now, now, did you see me have to form that chord? Really, the chord would have been this, but you didn't see me do that once. Because I wasn't playing a chord, I was aware, I could, in my mind's eye, see the chord on the fretboard, which is why this neck is worn out the way it is, because that's, us guitar players play those notes right there, the ones that are worn out. So if I'm playing a D form, I'm not, fine, that's the D form of what it would look like, you know, going up the fretboard, but we don't have to do that unless you want to play the full chord. But if you're fretting, if you're soloing, you don't need to know all that, right? You just need to know the basics of where things are, but you're not playing the whole chord at once, okay? All right. Good. Ex-mobster Sal, maybe a good guy to know. I'm trying to play along, and it makes sense. Love it. Just copied you. It's all about copying. It's literally all about that, and then going, oh, I get it. I mean, I do that with so many guitar players. I go, now why would they play that? And then as you start learning more of this type of stuff, you understand why it is that they did play or come up with that note. Maybe they weren't intentionally even thinking about it, but you can see where the math makes sense. And that's always really helpful, because then you can use those same tricks. You can bring them along with you. The guy who's not analyzing this stuff, right, is not going to be able to bring that along with them unless they have some way to package it in their head and bring it along and duplicate it. Oh, thanks for the kind words, Jason. Masters of any pursuit study under prior masters. Indeed. Indeed. Only if you don't want to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy. Yeah, why wouldn't you go to the best people who do their thing, right, and learn from them? Yeah, indeed. And here's Ken, he's saying, when I started concentrating on the A pentatonic, my playing improved quickly. Yeah, and friends, here is a little pro tip. Someone was asking, can you play a scale all over the fretboard? Yeah, but I can also, while I'm jumping with my kid at the trampoline park, I can be thinking about all the accounting that needs to be done and about the dishes that need to be done, the bill that needs to be paid, or I can be right there playing with my kid at the trampoline park. So when you're on the guitar, you can only be in one place at a time. So what would it matter if you could play a scale all over the neck? Because you can only be in one fret at a time, right? You can only be in one area. So what I'm saying is people get obsessed. Nothing wrong with your statement, by the way, Beer. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just make a point. So, you know, if I want to know, I know the pentatonic all over and the diatonic scales and modes all over, but realistically, I don't think that way most of the time. And again, this is about the 5 things I'm always aware of, that pros are always aware of, because they're not really thinking that. They're thinking, I'm in this area of the neck right now. There's an A7 chord being played. What can I play right here, right now? They're not thinking about up here because they're not there. Now, if they're thinking about going up there, then yes, now you're thinking, okay, now next. Kind of when you get in your car and you're going to drive someplace, you know where it is that you're going to go, or you should when you get in the car, otherwise you're probably not going to end up somewhere. All right. Okay. Hey, guitar, thank you, Eric and crew, for these lessons. Don't know how people learned before YouTube. I can't afford $50 per hour for lessons. That's what we did, is we just paid for lessons, right? And and learn from songs and books and magazines and wherever you can. All right, good stuff. All right, still looking here. Yes, thank you, Marine Mama, for, dehydration causes all sorts of cramps, for sure. Make sure you're drinking a lot of water. A lot of good, clean water with some minerals in it. When you write a solo, are you using theory and improvising at the same time? Yeah, I will do a little bit of both. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just put my phone on and then I'll play what I feel. But here's the deal. Even though I say that I'm not using theory during those times, sometimes I'm just improvising, we're improvising off of theory, okay? So don't let anybody fool you into thinking that when they're improvising, they don't see any shapes and they're not using any music theory. That goes back to what I said before. If that were true, then I can tune their guitar however I want. I'll tune it to standard tuning, but the E may be up a half step and the G may be down a whole step, and then they should be able to play just by ear perfectly, right? But we know that's not true because they're using shapes and concepts and standards and benchmarks, right? If it's tuned to standard, then I know that my octaves are going to be right here, right? That sort of thing. So I'm using both at the same time. Sometimes I will stop the tape and I'll say, okay, well, there's that E major chord. And how do I want to resolve that lick, right? So after that I did that. So that was over the F chord, and then over the first time the F chord play, resolving to the A. Right, there's an A, and I resolved it, and then the second time F and A minor. That was my second lick, which is blues, just straight out of the blues scale. All right. Now we resolved to the E major chord, and I did, which I wanted to use a note that was in the new chord, in the E major chord, and that's what I did right here. I used the arpeggio. But I stopped the tape, and I remember specifically going, okay, there's an E major. Now, what do I want to do here? Well, if I want it to be E major instead of E minor, which that chord normally would be E minor, then I want to play the note that would make it major so that I'm tracking with the rest of the guys in the band, and it sounds like we're talking together. That's E major. So I stopped the tape and I thought about more specifically some theory stuff that I could do, or some, not theory, but like what's going to sound good there. And so I had to use theory to go, well, here are the notes that would probably sound better. And then I created my lick from it. At the end of the day, there was one note at it that wasn't in the arpeggio because I just liked it. And I want you to think about that. It's like, have these bits and pieces where you're talking, right? Where you're having this conversation. You would want to think about it this way. If you're having a deep conversation with somebody and you're absolutely totally tracking and you're saying everything's safe, everything that you know is going to stay within those lines without any sort of color whatsoever, it also might be a boring conversation. But if you can throw in some color to really bring what it is that you're saying to life, well, then it's going to stick more, right? So again, if it sounds good, go with that instead of necessarily having to stay within the lines all the time. But it's there to help you. That's how I look at it, you know? Yes, the blues note is flattening the fifth, the flat five, yeah. Thanks, James. This guitar has a story. and I won't share it with you guys today because we're running out of time here, but I will share it with you soon. It has to do with Jimi Hendrix, and it has to do with Seth Lover, the originator of the PAF pickup, Gibson, and that's all I'll say. It wasn't owned by Hendrix, but it has very much to do with Hendrix's guitars. So I'll share that with you. Not today, though. Eric, can you suggest best practice method to internalize chord changes and how they are changing with a song? Well, James, yeah, there's different ways, but as you're listening to the song, taking small sections, that's the best way to do it. Take one small, like the verse, and understand that and really wrap your mind around it. A great way to do it is to play it using the cage system in different sections of the neck. So now you're not just dependent on how that chord should feel, like what you're used to it doing in the open position, but now you're feeling it further up the neck, but you're feeling it as the 1 and the 4 and the 5 chords, etc. You're feeling them in their ranking and what it is that their job is to do. Okay, this chord pulls to this chord rests a little bit more, this one's a little bit more tense, that sort of thing. And just repetition, okay? All right. Favorite acoustic for under $1,000. Tell you what, those orange wood guitars are really good for the money, and they're way under $1,000, like maybe $300 or so. Okay, yeah. How can you play melodic with the minor pentatonic, with the blues note, and chromatic scales at the same time with all of those notes? If you're playing the chromatic scale, it's playing all the notes, so there is no. That doesn't exist. If you're playing the chromatic scale, that's all the notes, so it wipes out all the other notes. Does that make sense? My niece said, I don't feel tardy. Where's my pencil, man? Okay. Eric Bennett said, how important is it to... It's important. I don't know. You're going to have to finish that up for me. Oh, how important is it? Here it is. To memorize all the notes on the neck. You don't need to memorize them. You just need to, I'll say this. How important is it to memorize the numbers 1 through 1,000,000? What do you mean? Well, have you ever counted 1 to 1,000,000? I haven't. Can you do it? Of course you can, because you know that the decimal just moves over, and you know about tens and hundreds and thousands, et cetera, right? Same thing is true with notes. So it's like, I don't have to know what this note is, right? But I need a way to know what it is. And I have a method using the springboards that I showed you. So that's a D flat, or a D sharp, or an E flat. But if you just said, what is that note? There's a couple different ways I could figure it out, right? But the one that was quickest for me was using those springboards. So know the names of the notes. By the way, if you guys haven't gone through this already, most of you have already. In the link below, YourGuitarSage.com/30 are the top 30 lessons I teach all my students. We've had hundreds of thousands of folks go through this. And one of the things I teach in there is how to know the notes on the fretboard. It's super easy. Take you 5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. And then you learn the springboards, and that lets you take that information and plug it in. Just like if you can count 1 through 10, you can count 1 through 1,000,000 if you know the names of the number as the decimal changes, right? Then you can count to infinity, right? You could if you knew what the names of those septillion and all the rest are, okay? And that's what I'm saying. That's how to memorize. But to say, boom, what's that note? Like pick any note out and know the name of it. Is that important? Sounds really boring to me. I would not try to do that. And if you're that kind of person, which I used to be, that think that things have to be painful for them to work or for you to learn something, then go through all that and come back when you've done doing that and you're completely exhausted, and then let's talk again, because you don't have to do that. That's not how life works. But if you need to go do that, then do that. It's not a cop-out. It's just there are better ways to learn. That's why I do what I do, because there are so many better ways to learn. Okay. Drew's asking, are the courses in the Unstoppable Guitar System or only on Udemy? So I think there might be one of those 3 courses in the Unstoppable Guitar System. The other 2 are not. Pretty sure maybe speed picking's in there? Okay, speed picking is in the Unstoppable Guitar System. The rock rhythm course is not. The jazz course is not. Those are only in Udemy. Boston guy needs help to get sped up. Dennis, link below, YourGuitarSage.com/Udemy, and go to the speed picking course. And Jeff, you'll be in good hands with Jeff. He will show you exactly how to get fast and accurate. That's the key. It's all about accuracy. Accuracy, the byproduct of accuracy is speed. But when you're going after speed, you never feel fast enough. It's frustrating, and you're trying to just play faster, when in fact you should be trying to play more accurate. And accuracy's byproduct is speed, so it'll happen without you even knowing. And you won't be freaking out all the time that you're not fast enough. Lakes in the Woods is asking, should I use 9s or 10s on their Les Paul? Doesn't matter. Do the one that feels good for you. You probably won't notice any difference at all in the sound. The feel, though, you will. I'd start with 9s, especially as a beginner. I actually love your finger picking course in Pro. I find it easy. Good, beautiful. Thank you so much, Marine Mama. Ex-Mobster Sal, I have a cheap Squire Strat I got 7 years ago. I also want to put new pickups. You think it's worth it? There's a lot of ifs there, right? If you like the pickups that are going into it, depends how much they cost, all the rest. But there are folks that do that all the time, and if you like the way your guitar feels and it's intonated well and all the rest, then dropping some nice pickups in it can be a nice upgrade. Yeah. Thanks for answering that. Best to learn arpeggios jazz-wise, then move on to shredding them style-wise. You can learn arpeggios jazz-wise. It's a great way to do it. And then, and yeah, they don't change. Like an arpeggio is an arpeggio. So if it's A major 7 arpeggio in jazz, it's an A major 7 arpeggio in shred guitar or heavy metal or anything else. It shows up on the same part of the neck. So it's all the same. Okay, good. Oh, thank you, Patrick. Kind words. Oh, good. Thank you, A Guitar. This is fantastic information as always. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome, bud. Question, I'm a beginner. Okay, we got that one. Apple cider vinegar will help, indeed, with inflammation. So you guys might have noticed that some of my fingers are deformed. I have 5 fingers that are deformed. My right hand here, I've got 3 of them, my thumb, middle, and pinky. And on this hand, my pinky a little bit and my thumb a little bit. It's gotten better over the years, but these are permanently deformed because early on in college, not eating the best food, just all that college dorm room food, and it was terrible. And I had just wicked arthritis, debilitating. Couldn't play guitar. It was so hard to play guitar. It was frustrating. Apple cider vinegar was one of the things that did help, and then also changing my diet. How important is it to memorize the notes on the neck? We talked about that one. Okay. It's important to know the interval names at least the first time, like I show you in that first course, YourGuitarSage.com/30. It's important to understand it like that. You don't have to be thinking about that all the time, though, except when you're building chords. Unless you want to sit down and memorize thousands of chords, the better way to do it is to understand the formulas and understand how to embellish a chord that you're already on. So if someone says play an A7, and you know that's an A, and you remember that if you find the octave of the A, and you drop it a whole step, and you add that note to the A chord, that you have an A7, now you didn't have to memorize a chord, you just used the math. And it's way wicked fast. If you understand that concept. In the same way as memorizing 1 to 1,000,000, we could sit there and memorize that. Like imagine a kid like not understanding the concept. They would literally have to memorize each word because every word's different. Every combination of words is different. 1,375,800. They'd have to memorize these huge things, as opposed to what we're doing is we're calculating it in our head and we're going, okay, 1,875,342. And then so on and so forth, and we're just adding 1 digit. So we're learning a method as opposed to memorizing by rote. Okay, so when you know those interval names, then it's very powerful because you can create all these thousands of chords without ever having played them, as you understand the formula. Any tips for writing better chord progressions? Micah, yeah. Search YourGuitarSage chord progressions on YouTube. I've got a video for you that will help you a ton. Okay. Oh, also, going through the first 30 lessons, I teach you about diatonic harmony and how that major scale applies and creates all the chords that are going to sound most likely in a particular song. Okay. All right, almost to the end of these questions here. I just want to make sure I get everybody answered, okay? Yeah, indeed. Hit that like button, friends, if you have not already. I'd appreciate that. Dang, you guys are chatty today. I'm not joking. I'm just looking for ones with question marks at this point. It's too hard to do it without. Okay, on some of my guitars, I get notches or spaces on the wound strings above the most used frets. Any idea as to the cause? Yeah, you're playing. You're wearing your frets out. That's great. Keep doing that. Eventually, you'll need a refret, like on my other Strat. That 65 had to be, the frets needed to be redone. I needed all new frets. So, do you use modes? Not for the most part, I don't. Not a big jazz guy. I don't like when people use it in blues. It's just personal preference. I just don't like the way it sounds. I think it's cool, and I think it shows that that guitar player knows what they're doing, but I don't like the sound. Do I use modes? No, not very often. I know them in all the keys and everything, but I just don't use them very often. Most guitar players don't either. 99% of the time, you're hearing pentatonic or blues, major, What's the coolest thing you can do or like about the guitar? I like to teach folks. I like to get them from A to Z in a short amount of time and get them to realize that they can do anything they want on this instrument, and then they start realizing that they can do anything else outside of the guitar as well. That's my favorite thing to do. Thoughts on Barry Harris's 6th Diminished scale? Nope, never heard of him, and I've never heard of the scale. He could be the best guitar player in the world. I just have never heard of him or that scale. It's probably nothing you need to spend a lot of time on. It's a diminished scale. You just don't use it very often. There's this thing that happens. I don't know if it's just with guitar, and not saying anything against you, Cyan, or Barry or anybody else, but like people really go down rabbit holes on the guitar, and they get lost in these things that they just don't need to get lost in because they're just never going to use it. And if that one day that they use it, yay, they get like 10 seconds in the sun. Learn the basic stuff that I teach you and get really good at that. That's what the masters did. They got really good at the basics. They got really good at the basics. All right. Happy birthday, Sal. Enjoy the ride. That's indeed. Exactly. Yeah, you got to take your time when it comes to guitar. It's a marathon, not a sprint. TB is saying, what daily exercise should I be doing to make progress? Should I be doing certain scales? Exercises are great. I have a whole course on exercises that really stretch you. But at the end of the day, no one wants to go see their favorite band play exercises on stage. They want to hear all the classic songs. So learn classic songs, learn great songs. It's all about songs, okay? On some of my guitars, different strings. Okay, we talked about that. Yep. Climber's asking which is a better string, 12 through 52 or 13 through 56. There's no better. It's just different. It's a different shade of red or whatever. That's all it is. Those are really thick strings, though, so you're not going to be able to bend those very well. What's your thought on me starting to learn open G rather than normal tuning just starting to learn. It's perfectly fine, Peter. You're only going to be able to play it in open G, which is might be all you want to play in, but you're not going to be able to pick up a guitar and go. So there's that, but that may be exactly what you want. If you think it's going to be easier playing in open G, it's not. It's just different. It's harder to hit a wrong note, but that has its fallbacks too. So open tuning music can sound kind of drony and kind of one trick pony type of thing. So standard is super easy, man. It really is. If you do it step by step, it's not that hard. Take advantage of the free course, you'll be fine. Is Mexican standard Fender as good as American standard? Typically a little bit less quality, but there's some great Mexican Strats. I've owned many. I have a pretty bad string pinch on my high E, first 2 frets. You need to probably bring that to a guitar luthier. No one's going to be able to diagnose that over the internet. Dang. You guys are like super chatty. This is good though. We're good here. Make sure I want to get everybody. For those of you that want to take advantage of the course, links below. We got 3 of them right now, 82 to 90% off. Are you aware of some of the type of quiz assesses that assess your current skills and suggest the next path to take for progressing? I'm kind of unsure, having learned things here and there over the years. If you're talking about guitar, it's probably some sort of thing that so they can get information so they can send you their app. So no, there's no... I'm telling you, the way that I have assembled even the free course, go through there. Once you exhaust the 30, then come back. If you need more help after that, I'll help you. Otherwise, there's a certain way that you want to learn that beginner stuff that everybody needs to learn. There's nobody that doesn't need to learn these things if they're playing guitar. And there's a certain order. How do you change the strings? I've got a video for that. Search YourGuitarSage strings. Can you play the Smurf song? I don't know the Smurf song. I don't know what that is. Okay. Should I use 11 or 12 gauge for fingerstyle acoustic? That's not going to make much of a difference at all. It's just how much you practice is going to make a difference. The 11s or 12s aren't going to make much of a difference. 12-string guitar, how does it work? So 12-string guitar, the 3 lower strings have an octave up. So when you're playing the 1 string, it sounds like that. You play the A string, it sounds like this. You play the D string, it sounds like this. And then you start playing like the other strings, and then you have duplicates. It sounds like that. So the top 3 strings, the highest in pitch, are unison. So it's just 2 of the same string, and the 3 bottom strings have an octave up. And when you put all that together, it just sounds more like more strings, like twice as many strings. Amp for thrash metal would be some sort of tube amp. I mean, there's a million of them, so it just depends on what you have money for. But a good Marshall, always, Eric, what is your opinion of the guitar plugins with audio interface? They're good. A lot of bang for the buck. I have some of those in my kid's store. Oh, we're almost to the end. Equipment-wise, with so much processors, why do pros prefer Stomp boxes? They prefer Stomp boxes because you can just reach down and do what you need to do instead of going through menus. It's one of the things that I don't like about the Kemper, but the Kemper is kind of the best of both worlds, or the better of 2 worlds, in that I have all the processing that I want at once, and then it's got lots of knobs and switches that I can tweak in real time. So while I'm playing, if I need to turn the verb down, I could do it. If I need to turn the delay up, I could do it. If I need to, turn up the EQ and do all that stuff, it's all there available. But that's why folks like Stomp boxes. Also, sometimes they just like the tone of them, Do I do a lot of legato? Yeah, I do legato and staccato, both of those. types of playing, depending on what I'm doing. Yeah. Will we be playing Utah on tour? Rob, no. We're playing in Rapid City coming up here. Let's see. Where's Rapid City? Montana? I don't know. I don't even know. We're going out west, and the guys have it figured out. I don't know. I'll post some of that stuff on Instagram because we might be in your town. We're going to be in South Dakota, we're going to be in Montana, and we're going to be in Wyoming. So we're playing maybe like 4 shows, and then we're shooting some music videos and what have you. But I will post that stuff on Instagram. All right. Okay. I think we're close, very close to the end. Eric, Jason's saying, Eric, please consider another live stream with your super talented wife. The last one was fun, especially with Mini Spider-Man trying to break the door down. Yes, okay, so here's the deal. Melissa will be on live with me 2 weeks from today, the 27th. Okay, so mark your calendars. She's going to be here. We're going to be dropping her songwriting course, which is bonkers. I've just gone through everything here, and it is absolutely bonkers, chock full, I think close to 4 hours. If you don't know what I'm talking about, my wife, my beautiful bride, is a hit songwriter here in Nashville. She's had several top tens. She's had a number 1, I think maybe 2 number 1s. The song that's currently playing during the Disney World firework display thing, Happily Ever After, she wrote that. Lots of songs and movies and stuff like that, but she's legit. And she wrote a book, and she created a course here in the studio, and I want you guys to have that, and we'll be blowing that out super cheap on the 27th. Okay. So definitely, she'll be here. Okay. How often do I change strings? Greg Ellis, my tech, does that twice a year. So as the seasons change, that's when he does it. Okay. Ideally, how long should I be practicing a day to make real progress? If you are totally fine with mediocrity, then just a minimum amount. If you're totally fine with sucking, then just a little bit. But if you want to be great, be obsessed with the instrument. Just like, don't put it down. That's pretty scientific what I just told you there too. That was straight out of a medical journal. I asked this on UGS earlier, but if you can do it now. A question I have for clarification. If the relative minor is 3 frets from each other, is that always from the tonic with the chord being played? Yeah, whatever major chord is being played, you can go down 3 half steps and find an equivalent minor chord, which is the related minor chord. And you can do that with major and minor keys as well. Go down 3 half steps from your major key. 3 half steps below will be your relative minor. If you're at the minor chord or minor key, 3 half steps up will be your related major. Okay? South Dakota, that's where it is. Yeah, I guess we're flying into South Dakota. Thank you. Favorite intermediate strat? Mexican strat's great. I don't know Alex Skolnick. I've seen him live. Yeah, Rapid City SD. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Okay. All right, friends. That is it for today. We went way over. Sorry, but a lot of questions today, so it seems like there's a lot of folks in here. I want to get y'all taken care of. Okay, friends, for all this stuff that I'm talking about here, that I talked about here, I've got videos for. So for the Tonal Center, just look that up. YourGuitarSage Tonal Center, YourGuitarSage Octaves, YourGuitarSage Springboards, YourGuitarSage Cage, YourGuitarSage Pentatonic, YourGuitarSage Tone. I'm gonna take care of you with more videos. If you haven't already, YourGuitarSage.com/30. The link for that's below. That'll get you into the course for free. Top 30 lessons that I've taught all my students. We've had hundreds of thousands of folks go through that. Absolutely changed their playing, okay, for life. And also the 3 courses that are on sale today, YourGuitarSage.com/Udemy. The link for that's below. That'll give you access to all of our Udemy discounts. But the ones that are at the top of the list, speed picking, rock rhythm, jazz course, all 3 of those are like 82 to 90% off right now. Like normally like $50, $60 courses are going to be like $9.99, something like that, $10.99. All right, so check that out, that link. Oh, Mike just posted that. All right, friends, thank you so much for being here. Great questions. I'm out of here. See ya.